My mother-in-law, Dolores, stood over the trash can, holding my daughter's unicorn birthday cake like it was contaminated waste. The 3 layers of vanilla cake I'd spent hours decorating were suspended in the air, seconds away from meeting coffee grounds and last night's leftovers. "She doesn't deserve a celebration," Dolores announced to everyone at my 7-year-old's party. The words cut straight through the happy birthday song we'd been singing just seconds earlier. My husband, Craig, just stood there, silent as always, his hands frozen mid-clap, while our daughter Rosalie watched her grandmother destroy what was supposed to be the highlight of her special day. The other parents gasped. The children went quiet. But what happened next made Dolores wish she'd never stepped foot in our house. I'm Bethany, and I'm about to tell you how my 7-year-old daughter outsmarted the woman who had been making our lives miserable for years. I'm 34 years old, an elementary school teacher who thought I understood kids pretty well until my own daughter showed me what real courage looks like. Rosalie had just turned 7 that day. She's the kind of child who names her stuffed animals after Supreme Court justices and insists on reading the news with me every morning. Smart doesn't even begin to cover it. She has a way of observing everything while pretending to be absorbed in her coloring books or tablet games, quietly taking in the world around her. Craig, my husband of 9 years, works as a software developer for a tech startup downtown. He's 36, brilliant with computers, and terrible with confrontation. He's the kind of man who apologizes when someone else steps on his foot. I fell in love with his gentleness. But that same quality meant he never stood up to the one person who needed standing up to the most. That person was Dolores. She's 62, a retired bank manager, and a professional destroyer of joy. She had opinions about everything, from how I folded fitted sheets to how many vegetables should be on Rosalie's plate. In her world, children were meant to be seen and not heard, and definitely not celebrated unless they'd earned it through academic perfection and complete obedience. The birthday party was supposed to be simple. 3 kids from Rosalie's new school, their parents, us, and Dolores. 12 people total in our Portland home, with paper butterfly decorations and a homemade cake. But Dolores had other plans. She always did. What she didn't know was that Rosalie had been planning something too. For weeks, my daughter had been working on what she called her special project on her tablet. Every time I asked about it, she'd give me a small, secretive smile and say it was for school. Craig assumed it was probably another one of her creative writing stories. We were both wrong. The moment Dolores dropped that cake into the trash, I saw something change in Rosalie's face. The tears were there, yes, but behind them was something else. A look I recognized from my own childhood. The moment I finally decided I'd had enough of being pushed around. She wiped her eyes, walked calmly over to her tablet, and said the words that would change everything. "Grandma, I made you a special video. Want to see it?" I should have known something was wrong the moment Dolores arrived at Rosalie's birthday party, carrying nothing but her oversized purse and that familiar look of disapproval. She walked through our front door at exactly 2 p.m., surveying our living room like a health inspector who had already decided to fail the restaurant. No gift bag, no card, not even a half-hearted balloon from the dollar store. The morning had started so differently. Rosalie bounced into our bedroom at 6 a.m. wearing her favorite purple dress, the one with tiny silver stars she'd picked out specially for today. "Mommy, do you think Grandma Dolores will like my surprise?" she asked, clutching her tablet to her chest like a treasure. For the past month, she'd been secretly working on something she called her appreciation project for school. Every time I walked into her room, she'd quickly minimize the screen and start playing some digital pet game. "I'm sure she'll love whatever you made, sweetheart," I told her, even though the words felt heavy with doubt. Dolores hadn't loved anything we'd done in the 3 years since we moved to Portland for Craig's job. Our small craftsman house had been transformed for the occasion. Rosalie and I spent 3 evenings cutting and folding paper butterflies in every shade of purple and pink, stringing them from fishing line across the ceiling. When the afternoon light hit them through the windows, they cast dancing shadows along the walls. The dining table was covered with my grandmother's lace tablecloth and set with mismatched vintage plates I'd collected from estate sales and thrift stores. Each plate told a story, and I wanted Rosalie to understand that imperfect things could still be beautiful. The centerpiece of it all was the cake. I stayed up until 2 a.m. the night before, carefully piping buttercream roses and sculpting a fondant unicorn with a rainbow mane. 3 layers of vanilla cake with strawberry filling. Rosalie's favorite. She'd drawn me a picture of exactly what she wanted, down to the unicorn's pink hooves and golden horn. "Remember when Grandma said unicorns are silly and I'm too old for them?" she asked while we mixed the batter together 2 days earlier. "I remember," I said, letting her lick the spoon. "I still want one," she replied. "Maybe when she sees how pretty it is, she'll understand why I love them." That morning, Craig was conveniently busy in the garage, supposedly getting ice, but really just avoiding the pre-party preparations. He'd been doing that more and more lately, finding reasons to be elsewhere whenever his mother's visits loomed. His weekly calls with her had become exercises in deflection. "Mom's just traditional," he'd say after hanging up, rubbing his temples. "She means well." But meaning well and doing well are 2 very different things, and Dolores had been steadily chipping away at our family since the day Craig proposed to me. When he told her I was a teacher, she'd paused and said, "Well, I suppose someone has to do it," as if shaping young minds were the same as mopping floors. My parents lived across the country in Boston, too far to make it for every birthday, but never too far to send love. They'd shipped a package that arrived 3 days early, with strict instructions not to open it until the big day. My sister Nain was supposed to fly in from Chicago, but her flight was canceled due to storms. She FaceTimed that morning, singing happy birthday, while Rosalie ate her special birthday pancakes shaped like butterflies. "Give Dolores hell," Nain whispered to me when Rosalie ran off to get dressed. "She's Craig's mother," I whispered back. "I have to try." Nain sighed. "You've been trying for 9 years, Beth. When's he going to try?" The guest list had been intentionally limited. 3 kids from Rosalie's new school were coming with their parents. Indigo, a boy with bright red hair who shared Rosalie's love of astronomy. Waverly, a quiet girl who had been teaching Rosalie origami at recess. And Jasper, the class clown who made my daughter laugh so hard, milk once came out of her nose. Their parents were the kind of people who brought homemade cookies to PTA meetings and actually volunteered for field trips. I spent the morning arranging everything perfectly. Party favors in small purple bags, each with a handmade butterfly clip, some candy, and a small notebook because Rosalie insisted her friends would love them. The playlist was carefully curated with songs about birthdays, dreams, and magic. Even our ancient golden retriever Biscuit wore a festive bandana. Craig finally emerged from the garage carrying exactly 1 bag of ice, wearing the same resigned expression he always wore before his mother's visits. "She's going to find something wrong," he said, not meeting my eyes. "She always does," I replied, straightening Rosalie's special birthday crown one more time. "But today is not about her." I was wrong. It was about to become all about Dolores, just not in the way any of us expected. The trouble started the moment Dolores walked through the door. She surveyed the decorations with pursed lips, her eyes tracking every paper butterfly like she was calculating the time and money wasted on them. "All this for a 7-year-old, she said. "Bethany, this is excessive. Children in my day were grateful for a simple cake and a family dinner." "Mom, please," Craig muttered from behind his coffee mug, his standard defensive position. "It's her birthday." "And last month it was her half-birthday, and before that a celebration for losing her first tooth," Dolores shot back. "You're raising an entitled princess who expects the world to revolve around her." Rosalie, who had been carefully arranging party favors on the coffee table, heard every word. I watched her shoulders drop slightly, but she kept working, placing each bag with the same precision she used for everything. That's when I noticed she'd placed a special party hat at Dolores' spot at the table, one she'd decorated herself with "World's Best Grandma" written in silver glitter glue. She'd spent an hour on it the night before, her tongue poking out in concentration as she made sure each letter was perfect. The other families arrived in quick succession. The Johnsons with Indigo, who immediately ran off to show Rosalie his new telescope app. The Patels with Waverly, carrying a gift wrapped in paper she'd painted herself. The Turners with Jasper, who burst through the door already telling jokes. The parents gravitated toward the kitchen where I'd set up drinks and appetizers, making the polite conversation that flows between people who know each other through their children. Dolores positioned herself in a corner chair like a queen holding court, occasionally making pronouncements to anyone within earshot. In my generation, children played outside instead of staring at screens, she announced when Indigo showed the kids his tablet. Sugar is poison for developing minds, she declared as Waverly's mom helped herself to a cupcake. Children today have no discipline, she observed, when Jasper laughed too loudly at his own joke. Craig floated between rooms, refilling drinks and avoiding eye contact with everyone. I caught him in the kitchen during one of his escapes. "Can you please talk to your mother? She's making everyone uncomfortable." "She's just being herself," he said, which was exactly the problem. "Then be yourself for once and tell her to stop," I snapped. He opened his mouth to respond, but Dolores's voice rose from the living room. "Rosalie, posture. You're slouching like a common street child." I returned to find my daughter sitting ramrod straight, her party crown slightly askew, trying to maintain perfect posture while playing a board game with her friends. The other parents exchanged glances. Waverly's mom moved closer to the children, creating a subtle barrier between them and Dolores. For an hour, we maintained this uneasy peace. The kids played Pin the Horn on the Unicorn, which Dolores called encouraging delusions about mythical creatures. They did face painting, which she deemed teaching vanity. They played musical chairs, which she labeled as promoting aggressive competition. Then it was time for the cake. I dimmed the lights and carried it in from the kitchen, the 7 candles plus 1 for good luck, casting a warm glow on Rosalie's expectant face. Everyone started singing, even Craig managing to raise his voice above a whisper. Rosalie closed her eyes, ready to make her wish. That's when Dolores stood up. "Stop this nonsense right now." Her voice cut through the singing like a blade. The room fell silent instantly. "This child got a C on her spelling test last week," Craig told me himself, "and she's being rewarded with this spectacle? This is what's wrong with your generation, Bethany. No consequences, no standards, just endless celebration of mediocrity." "Mom, that's enough," Craig said weakly. But his mother was already moving. "No, it's not enough. Someone needs to teach this child that rewards must be earned through excellence, not just existence." Before anyone could react, she grabbed the entire cake with both hands, plate and all, and marched into the kitchen with the determination of someone on a moral crusade. We all stood frozen as she held it over the trash can. "She doesn't deserve a celebration," Dolores announced. Then she dropped it. The cake hit the trash with a wet, final thud. The fondant unicorn's head snapped clean off and rolled across the coffee grounds and orange peels. Pink and purple frosting smeared against the black plastic bag. 3 layers of carefully baked love disappeared into the garbage in seconds. The room went completely silent, broken only by Biscuit whimpering softly from his bed. Indigo's mom covered her mouth with both hands. Waverly burst into tears. Jasper, the class clown, stood perfectly still, frozen in shock. But all I could see was Rosalie. Tears pooled in her eyes but didn't fall, as if she were holding them back through sheer willpower. Her bottom lip trembled as she stared at the trash can where her unicorn cake, her magical cake she had designed and dreamed about, lay in ruins among household waste. Craig stood motionless, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. "Mom, that was completely inappropriate," he finally said. "You shouldn't have done that." "Someone had to be the adult here," Dolores replied, brushing imaginary crumbs from her hands with the satisfaction of someone who believes she just performed a public service. When children fail, they face consequences. That's how they learn. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab Dolores by her perfectly styled gray hair and drag her out of my house. My hands shook with the effort of keeping them at my sides. Every maternal instinct in my body roared to life, demanding I protect my child, defend her, do something to erase the pain written across her face. Indigo's dad stepped forward. "Mrs. Dolores, I think you should apologize. That was cruel." "Cruel as letting a child believe she's special when she's average," Dolores shot back. "Cruel is setting her up for a lifetime of disappointment when the real world doesn't hand out prizes for participation." "She's 7 years old," Waverly's mom exclaimed, pulling her daughter closer. "Old enough to learn that actions have consequences." "A C in spelling," Dolores continued. "In my day, that meant no dessert for a month, not a party." Craig finally found his voice again, though it came out strained. The spelling test was on advanced words. The teacher said she did well considering they'd just started the unit. "Excuses," Dolores said, waving him off. "You always make excuses for them both." That's when I saw something shift on Rosalie's face. The tears that had been threatening to spill suddenly stopped. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and then smiled. Not a sad smile or a forced one, but the same mischievous grin she wore when she solved a difficult puzzle or pulled off a magic trick she'd been practicing for weeks. "Grandma Dolores," she said, her voice steady and clear, "I understand you're disappointed in me, but I made something special for you. Can I show you, please?" Dolores huffed and adjusted the strap of her purse. "I suppose, though I don't see how anything could excuse this behavior and these grades." "It's a video," Rosalie said, her excitement sounding genuine as she ran to retrieve her tablet from the living room. She handled it carefully, like it contained something precious. "I made it for school, but it's really for you. My teacher, Mrs. Chen, said it was the best project in the class. I got an A+ on it." That caught Dolores's attention. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "An A+? Well, why didn't anyone mention that earlier?" "Because it was supposed to be a surprise for today," Rosalie replied, as she connected her tablet to our smart TV with practiced ease. "I've been working on it for a whole month, every day after school, sometimes during lunch, too." Craig looked at me, confused. I shrugged. I knew as little as he did. Rosalie had mentioned a school project, but she'd been intentionally vague about the details. "It's called The Important Women in My Life," Rosalie announced, navigating through her files with quick, confident fingers. "You're the star, Grandma. The whole thing is about you and what you've taught me." Dolores's irritation softened into intrigue, then something close to pleasure. She smoothed her skirt and sat down in the prime spot on the couch, directly facing the television. "Well, I must say this is unexpected. At least someone recognizes the importance of honoring your elders." "Oh, you're definitely honored in this," Rosalie said, and something in her tone made me study her more closely. There was a glint in her eyes I'd seen before, usually right before she checkmated Craig in chess or revealed she'd known about her Christmas presents all along. The other parents lingered, awkwardly, unsure whether to leave. Jasper's mom started to gather their things, but Rosalie turned toward them. "Please stay. Everyone should see this. It's educational." "Yes, stay," Dolores said, now fully invested. "Perhaps you'll all learn something about proper values and the importance of grandmother figures in children's lives." Craig moved closer to me, sensing the shift in the room. Even Biscuit crept out from his bed, tail wagging cautiously as the tension seemed to lift. Rosalie stood beside the TV like a tiny presenter, her birthday crown still crooked, but her posture confident. "This took a lot of research," she said. "I had to gather what Mrs. Chen calls primary sources. Do you know what those are, Grandma?" "Of course I do," Dolores sniffed. "Original documents and first-hand evidence." "Exactly," Rosalie beamed. "And I found so much evidence. So much. You're going to be amazed at how much I learned from watching you." She pressed play with a flourish, then stepped back to stand between Craig and me. Her small hand slipped into mine, and she squeezed it 3 times, our secret code for I love you. The TV came to life with cheerful music like the opening of a children's educational show. The video opened with bright, cheerful music and a colorful title card that read, "The Important Women in My Life" by Rosalie Mitchell. Then Rosalie's recorded voice began, sweet and clear. "The most important woman in my life is my Grandma Dolores. I want to show everyone why she's so special and what she's taught me about life." Dolores visibly straightened, a satisfied smile spreading across her face as she glanced around the room. "Well, it's about time someone recognized my contributions to this family." The screen shifted to a photo of Dolores from last Christmas, looking regal in a navy dress. Rosalie's voiceover continued. "My grandma Dolores has taught me so many important lessons. Let me share them with you." The first video clip played. The footage was slightly shaky, clearly filmed from tablet height. A timestamp appeared in the corner. Thanksgiving, 6 months earlier. Dolores's voice rang out, unmistakable and clear. "That child is manipulative, just like her mother. She cries to get attention. It's pathetic, really. 7 years old and still acting like a baby whenever things don't go her way." The image showed Dolores sitting in our living room, talking on her phone, while I'd been in the bathroom. But the angle revealed something else. In the reflection of the china cabinet glass, Rosalie was visible on the couch, where she was supposed to be napping, curled into herself, tears streaming down her face as she heard every word. Dolores went pale. "How did you get this?" she demanded. But the video didn't stop. The next clip played. Christmas morning. A FaceTime call Dolores hadn't known was being recorded. Craig married beneath him. Obviously, Bethany can't cook properly, can't keep a house to any decent standard, and she's raising a spoiled brat. I'm embarrassed to tell my friends about them. When they ask about my son's family, I change the subject. The room was completely silent, except for the television. Even the children seemed to understand something important was unfolding. Another clip followed. This one was from Rosalie's school play 2 months earlier. Dolores stood in the lobby talking to another grandmother. She can't even remember her lines properly. No talent whatsoever, just like her mother. Not like my friend Margaret's granddaughter, who's already been accepted into the gifted program. Now there's a child with actual potential. Rosalie will probably be average her whole life, maybe below average if she takes after Bethany's side. Craig made a sound like he'd been punched. His face drained of color as confusion gave way to horror. The clips kept coming, each one worse than the last. Dolores, at her hair salon, telling her stylist that Rosalie was getting chunky and would probably struggle with weight like all the women on Bethany's side of the family. Dolores on the phone with her sister saying Craig was too weak to divorce me, but she was working on it. Dolores at a restaurant with her book club, casually explaining how she was documenting every parenting mistake I made in case she needed it for future custody hearings if Craig ever came to his senses. And then the last clip played. The timestamp read 2 weeks earlier. Dolores sat in our guest room, her voice calm and deliberate. "I'm thinking of telling Craig to file for divorce while Rosalie is still young enough to forget Bethany. Get full custody and start over with someone more suitable. That woman and her daughter are dragging him down socially and financially. Rosalie probably won't amount to anything with those genes. Bad breeding always shows. Maybe if Craig remarries someone with better genetics, the next child will have a chance at success." The video cut to Rosalie sitting at her desk in her bedroom, looking directly into the camera. "My grandma Dolores taught me important lessons," her recorded voice said. "She taught me that words can hurt worse than falling off my bike. She taught me that family isn't always kind. She taught me that some people smile at you while saying mean things about you when they think you can't hear." She held up her tablet to the camera. "But the most important thing she taught me was to always stand up for myself and my mommy. She taught me that bullies come in all shapes and sizes, even grandma sizes. And she taught me that evidence is important when dealing with someone who lies about being nice." The video ended with credits rolling over cheerful music. Special thanks to my tablet's voice-activated recording feature, cloud storage, and Mrs. Chen, who taught us about documenting sources. Also, thank you to Mommy for always hugging me after Grandma's visits, even when she didn't know I needed them. The final screen appeared. This video is dedicated to all kids who have relatives who pretend to love them, but actually don't. You're not alone, and it's not your fault. The TV went black. The room stayed utterly silent. Dolores's face flushed from white to a deep, furious red. She grabbed her purse with shaking hands, her knuckles going pale as she clutched the leather straps. "This is an invasion of privacy," she snapped. "This is illegal." She turned sharply toward Craig. "Your daughter invaded my privacy, and you're just going to let her get away with this?" My daughter," Craig said, interrupting her, and his voice carried a strength I had never heard in our 9 years of marriage. "Just showed me what a fool I've been, what kind of coward I've been." He took a step forward, his shoulders squaring. "Mom, you threw her birthday cake in the trash. You've been poisoning our family for years, and I let it happen because I was too afraid to stand up to you, too afraid to protect the two people who matter most to me." "You're taking their side?" Dolores shrieked, springing to her feet so fast she knocked over a glass of water on the coffee table. "After everything I've done for you?" "What have you done, Mom?" Craig asked, his voice shaking but steady. "Tell me, because what I just watched was you systematically tearing down my wife's confidence and my daughter's self-esteem. You called my 7-year-old manipulative. You said she had bad genes. You talked about taking her away from her mother. What kind of grandmother does that?" Dolores turned to the other parents, searching for backup. "This is a setup," she insisted. "They coached her to do this, to humiliate me." Indigo's mom stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Ma'am, no one could coach that kind of pain. We all saw that little girl crying on the couch while you talked about her like she was garbage. That was real." "You don't understand," Dolores sputtered. "I was trying to help them improve." Rosalie spoke up then, her small voice cutting through the tension. "By saying I'll never amount to anything?" she asked quietly. "By trying to make Daddy divorce Mommy?" Dolores spun toward the door, fury radiating from her, then turned back for one last strike. "You'll regret this," she said. "I'll tell everyone what you've done. I'll make sure people know what kind of child you're raising." "Good," I said, finding my voice at last. "Tell them about the 7-year-old who stood up to a bully. Tell them about the little girl who was brave enough to tell the truth. I'm sure that story will go exactly how you think it will." Dolores slammed the front door so hard that 3 paper butterflies shook loose from the ceiling, drifting down slowly like purple snow. The house stayed quiet for a beat. Then Indigo started clapping. His parents joined in, then Waverly's family, then the Turners. Soon everyone was applauding as Rosalie gave a small bow, her birthday crown finally slipping off her head and landing at her feet. "Mrs. Mitchell," Waverly's mom said gently, reaching into her large tote bag, "I have an extra cake in my car. I always bring a backup because I have anxiety about disasters. Would you like me to grab it?" 20 minutes later, we were singing Happy Birthday again, this time around a store-bought chocolate cake that tasted like freedom. Craig held my hand throughout the song, squeezing it every so often, as if apologizing for years of silence. When Rosalie blew out her candles, the cheers were twice as loud as before. After the guests left, I found Rosalie in her room, sitting cross-legged on her bed and writing in her journal. She looked up and showed me the page. "Today I turned 7. Grandma threw my cake away, but I got something better. Daddy finally stood up for us. He used his loud voice. Best birthday ever." Then she pointed to the next line. "P.S. Mrs. Chen didn't really assign that project, but she did say I should document bullying whenever I see it. I think I documented it pretty good." I sat down beside her. "Rosalie, how long were you recording Grandma?" "Since Christmas," she said matter-of-factly, "when she made you cry in the bathroom. I heard you, Mommy. That's when I started keeping evidence." Mrs. Chen taught us about evidence during our justice unit. 6 months have passed since that birthday. Dolores sent one letter through a lawyer claiming we'd violated her privacy rights. Our lawyer, Naeen's husband, laughed and explained that Oregon is a one-party consent state. Rosalie had done nothing illegal by recording conversations she was part of. Craig goes to therapy every Thursday at 4 p.m. He's learning how to use his voice, how to set boundaries, how to protect instead of just provide. Last week, he told his boss he wouldn't work weekends anymore. "My daughter is growing up fast," he said. "I won't miss it." Rosalie started a kindness club at school where kids document acts of kindness instead of cruelty. Her teacher gave her a real A+ this time for a presentation about standing up to bullies, even when they're family. The local news even ran a story about it, though we kept the details about Grandma Dolores private. The unicorn birthday cake has become something of a legend in our neighborhood. Sometimes other moms stop me at the grocery store to tell me they heard about what happened and to say, good for us for standing up for ourselves. But the best moment came just last week when Rosalie asked me, Mommy, do you think I was mean to Grandma? No, sweetheart, I told her. You showed the truth. That's not mean. That's brave. She smiled and went back to her homework, then looked up again. Maybe someday Grandma will say sorry, and we can try again. That's my daughter. Even after everything, her heart stays open to the possibility of change, of redemption, of love winning in the end. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear that standing up to family bullies isn't just okay, it's necessary. Drop a comment below about a time you or someone you know stood up to a difficult family member. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories about families finding their courage, kids teaching adults about bravery, and the power of truth spoken at exactly the right moment. Remember, sometimes the smallest voices speak the loudest truths.